Hello and good morning and welcome to the Comix Experience Graphic Novel of the Month Club, the Kids Club, for the January book, which was Cloudia and Rex, to the two cameras. You guys read it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Did you like it?
Yeah.
Can you be louder?
Yeah.
Yeah! There you go. All right, that's what I like to hear. So we are here with Ulises Farinas and Erick Freitas, who are the writers of the book, to talk about this and to talk about comics. And I always, my first question is always, it's a pretty simple one. Why comics? What is it about comics that made that the medium that you guys want to work in?
I guess you could just, there's like an infinite expanse on the page, the blank page, and you can fill it with anything. You can fill it with any story, any character, any person. You can tell any kind of story with a comic by yourself or with your friends.
Yeah, I'd definitely say it's the lack of restrictions. Like you honestly come up with anything to the point where sometimes I've gotten notes from editors where it's like, there's like no budget here. You can just blow up things as much as you want. So it's like it's interesting that way.
Yeah. So I know you went to SVA because I was able to find a wiki page on you. There's nothing on the internet for you,
and I like it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Probably smart, actually.
I went to Brooklyn College for film.
For film, okay.
Yeah. Film. And so I did a lot of screenwriting there, and through screenwriting, I learned how to write fiction through screenwriting, and then I fell into comics.
Okay.
There you go.
So let's stick with that for a second. What do you see as the main differences between writing for film, let's say, versus writing for comics?
I think the biggest one is, one, there's way less restrictions in comics. The only thing you really have to worry about is your page count and your panel count per page. In screenwriting, not only do you have to worry about your page count, which you have to fit everything. Normal script is 90 pages. Each act is about 30 pages, so you have to make sure certain things happen within these. And then on top of that, you have to worry about, is this affordable for somebody to make? Mm-hmm. Whereas comic books, you don't think about that at all, which we were just talking about. And the other one, screenwriting is very brief. Like it's very describe the room as quick as possible with as little words as possible. Whereas in comic books, it's okay to go into detail and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would say that's one of the biggest differences. Mm-hmm.
And you went to SVA, obviously illustration.
For cartooning.
Yeah, for cartooning. Yeah. You studied under Bertozzi, I saw.
I did.
Yeah.
He's probably one of my favorite teachers.
Yeah, it's funny. My biggest memory of Bertozzi is he used to be the sales rep for DC Comics.
Really?
He used to sit in an office and cold call retailers and ask them if they wanted to buy more copies of that Superman.
I can't imagine him.
You're right. Isn't that hella funny?
Yeah.
Nick Bertozzi's gone on to be a cartoonist himself. And he does like
the Pablo Picasso book.
Pablo Picasso and the Northwest Trail. Mm-hmm. A lot of historical fiction. So it's just really interesting that this guy used to work at DC Comics, flogging superhero comics.
Yeah.
What was the experience like studying cartooning at a school? I mean, had
painful.
Did you know early on that you wanted to be a cartoonist?
I knew early on I wanted to be a cartoonist, but when I was a kid, my idea of a cartoonist was like making Bugs Bunny cartoons, animation.
Yeah.
Then as I got older, I realized like animation is like a whole lot more work, and it's, any animated film has a team of thousands.
Yeah.
So I was just like, I want to make a Bugs Bunny type thing, but I want to just make it by myself. So. You have to answer that question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Any answer's a good answer. I'm not looking for that's the wrong answer, sorry.
Just get out of here.
Get out of here. Get out. When you were studying at school, how did you see the step after that? Or were you even thinking that far ahead?
I didn't see a step after. When you're in like regular school, they give you like you study, you give you the steps on how to accomplish this task. Like you're not going to leave the school without the teacher telling you how to do your homework.
Yeah, yeah.
In college, you will leave the school not knowing how to do your homework.
Right.
So I ended up dropping out of college, and I had in the first year of dropping out, it was Nick Bertozzi
Right.
who got me into a comics club, comics group, Activate, and then I figured it out by just hanging out with comics people who are in the business.
Okay.
And asking questions.
Right. Well, that's interesting, actually, that you dropped out because you have.
I dropped out in my last year.
Yeah, that's crazy because you're a really good penciler.
Oh, thank you.
I think I should have brought a prop up so I could show you guys some of his actual artwork. It's really detailed and really fine. Who would you say your influences are?
Definitely Mobius first and foremost. Seth Fisher, Jeff Darrow. But then a lot of stuff like the Richard Scarry books from back in the day.
Yeah.
If you remember those, there's all these little
Yeah.
animals. Where's Waldo books.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those.
Did you read a lot of comics when you were a kid?
Nope.
No, not at all. Okay.
I didn't start reading comics until senior year of high school.
Wow.
Yeah, I ran into comics as a kid. We had a few, I read some X-Force. I read
Right.
some. My dad brought home a whole crate of not Tintin.
Asterix?
No,
No.
Archie.
Archie. Okay.
Mixing it up.
Yeah.
Whole tin of Archie books. And I didn't like them at all. But we had so many of them that I just would read them.
Right.
And then I started liking them.
Right.
That's how it happened.
Yeah. There's a lot of craft in those Archie comics.
Yeah,
that you don't really see at first because it's so loosely cartoony. But yeah. How about you, Eric? What's your comics reading background?
I read comics. My mom used to take me to work, and there was this deli that had comic books on a rack. So I would just read whatever was on the rack.
Yeah.
And because I didn't really understand that comic books, I thought comic books were always a one-shot when I was a kid. So I just have this really weird memory of X-Men and X-Force and Spawn and all that.
Right.
And I would just create the rest of it with the toys. The rest of the stories.
Yeah.
I'd say that in high school, I was reading comics, but I didn't realize that I wasn't reading as much as other people until I started working in comics. Put it that way. Yeah. There's a lot of times where people oh, did you read this? No, I never did, and they would give me a dirty look. And
Yeah, I don't know how people in comics read. You go to a convention or you're hanging out with a friend, and they'll be like, "Yeah, I read this. I'm like, "Where did you get the time?"
Yeah.
Who's this? The guy? Fife, Michel
Yeah,
Fife?
he
has this extensive knowledge.
Yeah, sure. It makes you feel bad.
Yeah.
It really does.
Oh yeah, you're almost competitive.
Yeah.
How do you know all these things?
Yeah.
You're I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, I own this store full of all of these things, and I haven't been able to read maybe half of them. And even that, it's sometimes oh my god, I can't believe I've read all this stuff.
Yeah, the fact he's in half.
Yeah, exactly. That's really interesting. So you essentially started off as a penciler only.
Well, with pencil or an inker.
Yeah. Well, sorry. Yeah. Artist only, I meant to say.
Yeah.
Catalyst with Joe Casey was the first commercial book that I can think of. Is that right?
I think I did the Judge Dredd right before that. I think the first
okay.
Judge Dredd, Mega City 2, and I did a smaller Transformers book that didn't really get any. It wasn't. I don't like it.
So how did those the first comics come about?
The first Transformers book that I did was I was looking for work in comics, and I was going to different submissions pages, which aren't as common anymore. And at the time, IDW had actually taken down its submissions page, but I know I had seen it in the last 4 years prior. So I went on those internet cache websites that cache the web, and I found the previous page of their submissions page, so I submitted to that page, and they still responded to it.
Nice.
It still went to a working email address.
Nice, yeah.
I kind of figured it would,
Sure.
And they wrote to me and hey, do you want to work on this Transformers book? And I was like, yeah. And that was from there. I've been freelancing since then.
Pretty steadily too. Yeah. Very cool. What made you wanna do more writing rather than just doing the art?
Well, it's even if you're working by yourself, drawing is a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, if you draw with a lot of detail, it takes a long time to get your stories out. And you know, me and Eric, we just have lots of stories we want to do, and it just doesn't make sense to just, you know, wait on yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so it really was just a matter of us like wanting to get more work out there, more stories out there.
And how did you guys meet and start the writing?
We met in middle school.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
we met in middle school, and we were always in art class together. And I just always remember, I always wanted to do something creative when I grew up. He always wanted to do something creative. And I always thought that I was in competition with everyone in my school for those type of jobs. When you know, after high school and then going into college, I realized, oh, it's really just us two.
Yeah.
Like, and we always helped each other out. He would show me his artwork, I would show him my writings or my ideas or whatever. Or even when I was making like short films, we'd always like talk about them. And it was just almost like a natural progression that he got an opportunity to pitch an idea. We were already writing pitches, but then we got one with Dark Horse, and we worked on it together. And we got Gamma, and then we kind of went from there.
It's amazing that you guys are still friends through middle school, because
Well, it's like in our school was like, I'm gonna say low income. You could extrapolate that to how terrible. It was a bad school.
Yeah.
But like when you're in a situation like that, like there's not really, when you're like have like these like nerdy interests, like you're really into Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles way past everyone else stopped
Right.
being into
Right.
it,
Right.
and you're still like, I'm gonna draw these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right.
And I remember that was one of the first drawings that like Eric saw was like my parody of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that my mom told me to stop drawing.
Okay.
So, like, I think that environment of being kind of like isolated as being more like nerdy, creative, artsy kids, kind of, you know, made our friendship stronger, or partnership. You know?
Yeah. Nice. So let's maybe talk about Cloudia and Rex a little bit. Where did this come from?
Honestly, it came from a Shazam comic.
Okay.
You know, Captain Marvel.
Do you guys know Captain Marvel?
Yeah.
So Captain Marvel, he says Shazam, and he turns into the god. You know, he turns into, his name is what's the word for acronym?
An acronym.
An acronym for all these different Greek gods. And I was like, it would be so much cooler if a kid could turn into like any god, like, and learn about these different mythologies across the planet, all these different cultures, all these different peoples, by turning into it. But then I thought she needed like a partner. So I thought her little sister should turn to dinosaurs because it's cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty, and it went from there, you know.
Yeah. Just because it's cool. I like
Yeah.
that. That's always a good reason to do something. It is. I'm not kidding. So what was the process of? I mean, you have this idea. How do you pitch it? How does this work for you guys?
Well, we decided like pitching is really annoying. It's like you have these ideas, and you're usually telling them to people who don't come up with their own ideas,
Right.
but just constantly say no to ideas. So it gets very disheartening to tell someone your idea, and they're like, oh, we're not into it. So I wanted to start my own like publisher so I can get it out without having to pitch it to anyone. So I teamed up with our friend Storm Smith, who helped fund the comic, and then we brought it to Magnetic Press, which was a small comic book company. I was like, hey, I got these comics, they're paid for. I just need someone to do all the other stuff. And they're like, okay.
Well, so it's kind of bold to say I'm going to put together my own imprint.
Yeah.
Buno? Is that
Bunyo.
Bunyo.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's named after our dogs.
Oh, cool.
Buster and Nora.
Oh, okay. That's cool. That's super cool. So what made you? I'm going to phrase this wrong. What made you think you could do that?
I don't know. It's like if you get told no a lot of times, the only other option is yes.
Yeah.
You know, like, well, if you can't do it, if you end up trying and you can't do it anyway, you're back to where you started from.
Right.
So if you try anyway and try your like a crazy idea, like, hey, you know, it's a crazy idea to be like, hey, you want to pay me money to tell this imaginary story?
Yeah.
And eventually someone will say yes if you do it enough and you do it well enough and they see you're dedicated.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. got to stick through it.
Yeah.
So the blank page. You're sitting in front of your typewriters, or computer monitors. Nobody has
You
typewriters.
just got a typewriter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
We were literally just talking about that.
Like a manual or a...
Yeah, I mean,
Sweet.
no plug, nothing.
Yeah.
It's a pain to figure out, but
Yeah.
I'm learning.
Okay, so you're sitting in front of the typewriter. How do you get to page 1, panel 1?
It's a loaded question. I guess first things first is I kind of just go back to like writing structure, and I try to think of boiling. I was literally just talking about this. That's why it's like you're gonna hear everything I was just saying. Boiling it down to a very simple concept where I can say it to you very easily, very quickly, and you're like, oh, I understand that story. I understand what it's about, and not only that, I can tell you right now whether or not I'm going to read that story. You know, so those are like the 3 things I really try to get it down. I try to get it down to 1 to 2 sentences, and then once I have that, then I start building the outline. Now, that's going to be completely dictated by the amount of pages or comics we have. So if we have I think Cloudia and Rex was 3 comics. So 3 comics, 20 pages each, more or less, that's 60 pages. There's 3 acts in a story. There's 3 comics, so each comic is an act. And you break down each act by 20 pages, and you write the emotional beat that needs to happen in each one. This is all like writing math. I'm sorry, guys. And and then you just build it from there. And then from there, now you have your outline, and you know if you get lost in the story, if you just do this scene here, even if it's not the best scene yet, you'll know that at least the story can move on to the next page, and then so on and so on.
Yeah. So when you guys work together as a collaboration, are you sort of pre-discussing this kind of plotting stuff first?
Well, usually, I feel like it starts even sooner than that. We'll usually just like text each other like, "Hey, I got this idea," you know, or a lot of times, you know, me and my partner Melody will be walking like, and I'll see something like an interesting architectural feature, and be like, "What if there was a whole planet that was just that?"
Right.
You know, like it really is like taking something small a lot of times and expanding it to an entire universe.
Yeah.
And you're just like, whoa, that's weird. You know?
Yeah.
I remember when we went to France, we were going to these castles. And one of the ideas we had was just like, what if there was, you know, I was working on Judge Dredd, and it's a mega city. I was like, what if there was a mega city that was done in like an earlier city style, like
For
2 weeks.
1500s.
For like 2 weeks, all his ideas had castles.
Castle.
Right.
You know, and it's
Right.
like, but you know, even though I haven't worked on that idea like as into a comic yet, it's just one of those ingredients now that we might use later on.
Yeah. Okay. So you text ideas back and forth. Who do you, Eric, start
It
the
depends.
typing or?
It all depends. Like we'll start talking, and then we'll figure out who has a better feel for the story.
Yeah.
And usually someone will announce it. You know, just like I think I could do this, and then that person will do it, and then we'll go back and forth with on the same Google Drive, and kind of get it to a good point.
Nice.
Yeah. So usually it's okay.
Nice. And are you doing the thumbnails or anything, or are you just completely leaving that?
With Cloudia and Rex, that was interesting because the artist Daniel Rosari is actually very similar in style to how I draw. So we would work a lot on the pages simultaneously, where I would either do thumbnails or he would send me thumbnails, and I would just like literally on my phone with my thumb be like, no, put the, you know, draw like a really simple figure, like, no, make that a close up, you know, make this a far out shot. To the extent that like even all the covers, I can like find on one of my pages like where I sketched it on the side and took a photo of it and sent it.
I see. Okay, that's cool.
And then became the cover.
That's
you
nice.
know?
Yeah.
So it's a collaboration between like artist to artist and also from writer to writer a lot of times.
Yeah, no, that's kind of fun. Let me turn to you guys in the audience, and you guys must have questions right away, right in the front.
Been itching.
So, when I read this book, the first thing I thought, going to the second page is, this is confusing. Why isn't there a prologue? So why didn't you make a prologue?
A pre what?
A prologue. Like,
Prologue.
Prologue. Yeah, that's all good.
I guess, you know, like, you ever watch Star Wars?
Yeah.
You know, in Star Wars, like, you know, after like they give you that little the text, it's like you're just right in that war. You're like you're just going through it, and I always felt like I enjoy my stories like that, to just jump in and you'll figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
That's just a personal preference for me.
On the second page, I was kind of confused because like it's
I love this kid.
world. It's like our human world. This is all fine, and then it just jumps to a regular world. And
Yeah.
It's just like.
Well, it made you feel like disoriented, right?
What?
Like it made you feel like confused. Like where am I?
Yeah.
Like that's why I was hoping you would get. Yeah.
Where am I in this? Like, where does this take place? Does it take place here? Does it take place here?
That's part of the fun.
Yeah.
It's part of the fun. Like you wouldn't know if you're experiencing what they were experiencing. Yeah. You'd kind of be like, in the beginning of any story, especially fantasy, there's a certain level of disorientation that goes on.
Yeah.
And then by the time Act 1's over, you've established the world and you can move forward.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
all
There's
we
actually,
get from
just so you know, there's actually a Latin term for starting the story in the action. It's called in media res. And it means starting it in the middle and letting the audience catch up.
But I will say those aren't bad notes, sir. So those are not bad notes. So good work.
But then I realized.
Oh, yeah, more.
In chapter 2,
I love
in chapter 3, you get they explain everything. So.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You have editor blood.
I like that. Sir.
Are you gonna make a second book?
Well, it's like that whole process of like asking people for money. That's where we're at right now.
So we'll
Hopefully,
see.
like I have the next 12 issues outlined.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so it's really just finding a home for this book.
Okay.
Because it's like when you're making comics, you're almost like a nomad, moving from like oasis to oasis of where you can get water.
Even with your own imprint.
Well, one of the things going forward with the imprint is to make it not an imprint anymore.
Okay.
Is hopefully make it just it's a standalone publisher.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Questions? Really? That's it? Come on. You guys must have something.
Weird.
Hamilton.
Why does the mom look like a god in the end part?
Okay, so in the beginning there is Thanatos, which is like the skull, and then there's Hypnos, which is that blob, and they go to that temple of the really big god with all the other gods, and his name is Zervin. Zervin is a Persian god who is the god of time and harvest. All this, they have big, broad capabilities back then. So Zervin allows them to travel to Earth. He creates the big, beam, and all the gods travel. But you see all the gods in Claudia's head, but they never show where did Zervin go.
Right.
And Hypnos went into Rex's body, and Zervin is revealed in the end to be inside the mom. And since the mom was always like a mom who's always running out of time, I thought it was really cool to have her have the power to control time now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Does that make sense, Hamilton? Cool. Do you have another question? No? Okay. It's cool.
He has another one.
Yeah, please.
Why is there a giant Cloudia and a giant Rex in the middle, in the third page?
Let me see.
So in the middle of the book, when they where is it? Oh, it's
Copy
so
yourself.
Oh, yeah,
when
yeah.
something happens. Something happens right there. There's a giant Cloudia.
That's just like the camera is very close to them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How much do you think about like camera placement and things like that when you're writing?
I was gonna say I think about it a lot, but I always leave discretion to the
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I'll have a mental image of how I see it, but usually, and it depends. Some editors will be like, add more direction,
Yeah.
but I'm usually of like, that's not my job. Like if I'm a writer, I feel like the artist is given the opportunity to be the be a collaborator. Like they create the story visually. So for me as a writer to be like, no, I have this, very set visual style that I want, I feel like it's inappropriate. Cause I'm just like, especially because I'm like, well, I can just draw it then. Like, they could just say that, like, well, you draw it then.
Yeah.
So I always, we usually just leave it open and if there's anything that just like
That is really off.
that's off or doesn't get that like emotional beat, you know, like where the emotions are supposed to be like the strongest on the page.
Mm-hmm.
If that's not like, then we will talk about like a different approach. But usually I'm just like, go for it, you know.
When you draw yourself, do you work digitally? Do you work pen and paper?
I use a pen and paper and a steel nib.
Uh-huh.
To you have to dip it in the ink. It's very
Wow.
they don't sell the nibs anymore. I'm gotta figure out what to do.
Wow.
Yeah, I literally called the company.
Uh-huh.
Is the name of this manufacturer, and their machine is broken.
Wow.
And they're like, yeah, we'll send them to you when we fix the machine.
Right.
I'm like, well, when are you gonna fix the machine?
Yeah.
So
That reminds me of when Dave Sim was still doing Cerebus, and it was right towards the end of Cerebus. And Cerebus, the character Cerebus, has a lot of zipatone on it. Zipatone is this kind of layer that you put on that has little tiny dots on it, so that it when you print something, it looks textured. Can you picture what I'm?
Oh,
what-
yeah.
Like little teeny tiny dots on
like
it.
old newspapers.
Like old newspapers, yeah. But so he has this comic that he's drawing. He's drawing it for 30 years. It's like a lifetime project. And about at year 25, the company that made Zipatone went out of business, and he had to scramble. And he like literally was calling city by city by city, like finding places that still had Zipatone and buying up all of it, so that he could have Zipatone enough to finish his comic book for the next couple of years. I always thought that was
The same thing happened to Charles Schultz.
Yeah.
He had a particular nib he used, and he stopped making it, and he went to the manufacturer and bought their entire inventory. And that's what he used for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's like you get used to one tool, and you know how to use that tool perfectly.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, well, that tool's gone. You're just like, there goes my career.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Oh, that's very funny. Yes, question in the back.
There's some young writers and artists in this room, and I'm wondering what advice you would have for young artists and writers, and what do you wish that someone had told you when you were in elementary school or middle school?
I would say start now and never stop, and do it all the time. And because there's going to be a lot of people or a lot of situations that are going to remind you or lie to you and tell you that you can't make a living doing it, but you can make a very good living and a very you get a quality life from doing art professionally and in all its forms, from photography to drawing to writing. So and listen, America has one of the most successful creative industries in the world. There's lots of money to be made, and there's people making livings and paying their bills doing it. So if you start now and you really want to pick, like, obviously you guys are young, but when you're older and you say, I want to pick a career, don't knock art as one of them.
Yeah.
Because it's just like any other craft. You have to learn it. You have to be dedicated. You're going to have to, roll the punches sometimes, but just like anything else, you'll eventually get there.
I think it's like when you're a very young kid, your parents, your teachers, everyone says you can do everything you want. Then you get to like the end of elementary school, and like you can do anything you want, but these are all the things,
Right.
and suddenly the pool is small. Then you get to middle school, and the pool gets smaller and smaller. By the time you get to high school, anything you can do is like you can work in a bank,
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Exciting.
it's like when you're a kid is when you're most creative, when you play just to play, when you dance just to dance, you'll sing, you'll make up songs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're going to run into people who say no to you more and more as you get older. And the only thing that matters is that you keep saying yes to your own ideas. You keep saying yes to, you know what, I just made up this song, and it's a great song, and I'm going to write it down now, now that you told me stop singing that song,
And I'm so grateful that when I was a kid, I wrote a lot, because I'm 32 years old and I still look at my things that I've written when I was like 12 and to use today as ideas. Because I still think the best concepts I ever had were when I was a kid. Like right now, it's like there's so much weight of being an adult that's like sometimes I just can't think like creatively. But like when I was a kid and I look through those old notes, it's just like, wow, these are all like, if someone professionally wrote this would be great, a great idea, So yeah.
And I find that the people who do say yes to you, those are the ones that you keep in your life. Those
Sure.
are the ones that will help you get your song or your dance or your story from just something you made up on the spot to something that you're gonna work on for the rest of your life. Like I draw like monsters that I look at like a drawing from when I was in 4th grade of a monster, and I just redesign that monster. Cause I'm like, a T-Rex with lobster claws? Sure, like that's a good idea now. You know, and it's only because of like people in my life, like my parents, like the teachers I had, that within the situation of being in a bad school or, you know, not having enough food to eat, they were still saying yes to creative pursuits, to creative ideas, even though when you're in a bad situation, saying yes to that seems like a crazy idea.
One time at a signing, we had a father bring his 2 daughters to our table, and he was asking us about our career and things like that. But we realized he was trying to shift the conversation in a way to convince his daughters not to pursue art careers. Remember that? And he was like, "Yeah, but you guys don't really make a living doing this." You know, like, and he was like, "And it's really hard, right?" And we were just like, "No, it's just like, what do you do for a living?" I think he said he was a doctor. I was like, "Do you work on that every day?" He was like, "Yeah, and so do I." You know, it's like every day I work on it, and the more I work on it, the better I get, and the better you get, the more money you can command. Isn't that just the law of like the world?
Yeah. No, and the thing I would add to that in interviewing many cartoonists over the years is just keep working every day. If it's a thing that you love, it's like building up a muscle. You know, you have to build up that muscle every day, and you've probably got 1,000 bad drawings in you first that you've got to get out. 10,000 bad words that you've got to get out of you, and then once you learn that part, then you can move forward.
Well, it's like a lot of times I think like all disciplines are creative disciplines because we're all like unique people.
Sure.
So even a mathematician is bringing their own personal creativity, their own brain, but they also it's not just being creative. They also have to work in math for dozens of years to even come up with their one solution. You know, I think like anything, all these processes is like you have to work at it just like any other job. You know, a creative job, you have to get good at creativity. A math job, you have to get good at math. You know.
Yeah, the word creative has such a bad connotation within industry. Like I'm a creative for a living. It's just like, oh, you must not pay your bills. Like that's like the immediate assumption, which isn't true at all. I pay my bills, and you can too. And there you go.
How did you guys meet Daniel Irizarry?
How did I find
You
him?
nailed his name, by the way.
Yeah, I think on Tumblr.
Yeah.
I think he was just online. Yeah, it was either Tumblr or Twitter. I saw his art, and I reached out to him, and we just started talking about Star Trek a lot. You know, and we started talking. When we talked about Star Trek, we found we had so much in common through that, and it was just like I got this. We were working on this comic idea called Ocean, which was just this endless ocean exploration comic, and we were working on it, and then the artist for Cloudia and Rex dropped out. I said, "Hey, everything you were working on, do you want to not do that?
That's kind of funny.
Do you want to do this?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, definitely." So
Cool. Classic, Next Gen, Deep Space Nine.
all of them.
All of them. Okay.
Yeah,
There you go.
except Enterprise.
Yeah.
I can't finish it. I'm trying.
Even Voyager, I don't.
I still watch Voyager on the
Really?
regular.
I don't know.
They're like good, bad
I
TNG
suppose.
episodes.
Yeah, I suppose. How important do you think things like Tumblr and DeviantArt, etc., are to current comics production?
I would say what's really important to comics production is the community, and the community is always going to move. It's going to be on DeviantArt for a few years, then it's going to be on LiveJournal, then it's going to be on Blogspot, then it's going to be on Twitter, then it's going to be on Tumblr. And the community is always moving, but the community, once you find it, is always there. You know, I think finding the people who say yes to you, the people who work with you, finding your collaborators, finding your friends, that is what makes your career, and not so much like, how am I going to feed myself the next day?
Sure.
You know, it's just like you feed yourself by meeting these people
Yeah.
and by making these relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense to me. Questions? Really? Oh, there we go.
Where did the design for the high waveform come from?
Are you talking? Which one is the high waveform?
Huge thing that has a lot of eyes on it.
Oh, the seraphim. Okay, so the high waveform is technically God. It's just God itself.
Okay.
It's a monotheistic God that's consuming all religions. But I didn't want to like offend like Christians,
Mm-hmm.
even though it is like technically a Christian God that's doing this. And the seraphim is how the angels in the Bible are actually described. They're these I think 6-winged beings, one of the wings constantly covering their face, and the wings are all covered in eyes because that's what people in the Middle East thought was a good idea.
Right.
Creativity a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I love the actual descriptions of biblical entities because what we actually see of the Bible now is like just like cute little angels, and when they actually describe the angels, like, oh, this angel is a wheel, and every spoke of the wheel has eyes on it too. They just put eyes on on every. If there's a space for eye,
Because
like
they're always watching us.
Yeah.
So the gods are for, yeah.
What does it mean? So on the back it says cover to issue number 1 and cover to issue number 3.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get that when I read it.
Well, this is cover to issue number 2, and it was just my favorite cover. So we made it the cover of the whole collection.
Yeah, and these were originally published as individual issues of comics.
Oh.
This is a collection of those individual issues.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Most comics are produced like that, largely for financial reasons, you know, to make it cheaper to put out the book. If you didn't serialize the comics in the first place, this book, instead of being $10, would probably be $15 or $20, because that's what it would cost to put it out. Yes?
When you first had the idea for Cloudia and Rex, did you already know like how you were going to pitch it, who you were going to pitch it to, and how did you end up getting it published?
No, it's not.
An
Oh,
audience member.
it's
That's
not
my girlfriend.
it's not planned.
It's like, what was it again? I'm sorry, Bill.
Oh, when you first had the idea for Cloudia and Rex, did you already know who you were going to pitch it to?
Yeah, because I actually came up with the imprint idea, the Bunyo, before Cloudia and Rex had like crystallized.
Yeah.
But then once Bunyo was set up, I was like, I needed a book.
Yeah.
And then it was like, which one do we choose? And we went with Cloudia and Rex.
Yeah.
Do you remember why we went with Cloudia and Rex?
Because we were working on it already. I think it was as simple as that.
Oh. I feel like those are a better reason. But I guess it wasn't that
It was a great high concept. So let's talk about the imprint a little bit. What was your motivation with doing an imprint?
I really love comics. I don't really read too many of like the superhero comics, but I do love like, you know, publishers like No Brow or Fantagraphics that publish, I find, gorgeous books. There are books that just to look at the book is beautiful. The design of the book, the paper quality, and then you read the story, and the stories are great. The art is great. There are these artifacts that are just like these moments in time, and I thought, unfortunately, most of those publishers publish a majority of white male comics.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember in my bathroom right now, there's a comic from Fantagraphics, a freebie. It's called World's Best Cartoonist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's 8 cartoonists in this book,
Right.
and 7 out of 8 are white men.
Right.
And I find that you could say North America's best cartoonist,
Sure.
or a sampling of North America's
Sure.
best cartoonist.
Sure.
But to say world's best cartoonist, and you didn't happen to find one person of color,
Right.
you know, I find that to be irresponsible of the publisher.
Yeah.
You know, and I found it's not because, you know, you just want to make everything fair. It's because if you want to say the world's best cartoonist, I want to know what the world looks like. I want to know what these stories, why they matter to all these different people. And I thought, well, if it doesn't exist, then someone has to make it. So
Yeah.
Bunyo is my attempt to address that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so,
We have to go, but I wanted to celebrate the people of color as the main characters.
Oh, thank you.
You don't see that nearly enough in
Yeah.
comics,
Well, that's and so like Claudia and Rex, like they're all Afro Latina, and it's like if you look at me, you don't see, you see I look like a white guy, or a paler person.
Sure.
And but you don't see my family. You don't see the foods that we ate. You don't see the conversations. You don't see the history, how they got here, just a generation ago. And like my mom looks like their mom, And I was just like, but my mom is just a mom. She's not. She has the same concerns as everyone else. She has the same problems. She had to go through her own particular things, but they're universal things at the same time. And I thought, I don't want to read stories of by people of color that are about people of color. I want people of color to write stories about people because that's what everyone else gets to do.
Sure.
So that's why.
Is the intention for this to open it up to many people to be contributing to? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, we have a few books that we want to do, and the majority of them are either Black or Latino.
Okay. But I mean, in terms of other creators.
Yeah.
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 Okay. How do you get to that place?
I usually
like from just being an imprint here. Like what? How do you see that next step to?
Usually it's really like seeing something you like and being like, I want to be responsible for making sure other people like it.
Yeah.
Which is just like that comic you've been working on it. I see you've been working on it. No one really knows about it, but I see that other people need to know about that. So I'll see it. I talk to them and I'll ask them like, do you mind if I like show this to a few people? And then when you show it to a few people, you find the right person. Just like, I agree. And then you're just like, handshake. And then in a year, it's there.
Yeah.
No?
No, I just am nodding my head a lot.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, are there other questions here? In the back?
What does Cloudia mean?
It's like Haagen-Dazs, where like Haagen-Dazs doesn't mean anything. So like I wanted a name that was like Latino-esque, but at the same time I didn't want it to be anything.
Right.
Like I just like the fact that it's just like this weird dog. It's actually just like I have to make a brand, and I'm not a brand maker, so I'm just making something funny that.
Cloudia means fist.
Does it?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even know that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm taking that.
You learn something new.
I'm gonna be like, you know what it means? That's all I'm gonna do.
Do you see all of the work that you guys do in the future coming through your own pub? No.
Cause you gotta eat.
Yeah.
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 Like I didn't get paid to do this.
Right.
So like, even if you try to make a solution to like a problem you have, it's just one solution to a very big problem, and but it's a good problem to have because you're choosing to be a storyteller as your main career. And
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Yeah. So did I'm assuming you guys paid page rate to Daniel then? Is that that's why you haven't earned anything out of it yet?
Yeah.
Creator owned, yeah. So
yeah, it's still creator owned because like a lot of times, say like Image is a publisher and they'll be like, oh, everything's creator owned, and I find a lot of times that it's these books where it's just like, yeah, it's creator owned, but at the end of the day, it's that whole year that was taken from the artist, and they're not going to see anything from it, and then all the accolades will go to the writer.
Right.
And the artist just gets switched out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So I just feel like even with creator owned, you should be able to give something to the artist to acknowledge the difference between writing and drawing. Drawing is just more labor intensive,
It is, yeah.
and to pretend that it's not. I find so many longtime writers will pretend, no, we're doing equal work. And it's like there's a big difference between typing and being bent over drawing.
Sure, and well, most of those writers, I suspect, do work as hard, but they get 6 comics at the end of the month out of it,
Exactly.
as opposed to having 1 comic.
Exactly.
I mean, they are, literally from their point of view, they're working the same
They are,
amount.
but the real difference
The
is
output's different.
the output,
The output
is
is different,
different.
yeah,
And
yeah.
you have to be, straightforward about that. I
Yeah.
feel like.
Yeah, I could finish a comic book in a day, like
Yeah.
like beginning, middle, and like drafting and everything. If
Okay.
I really put in 14 hours, I can do a first draft in the morning, a second draft in lunch, and then
Right.
a third draft.
And believe me, you as an artist, you'll get scripts to work on that that they finished in a day.
Yeah.
That we're just like, oh,
Yeah.
what am I drawing here?
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
And we've sent out some scripts that we finished in a day.
never. We only give you the cream of the crop. Okay.
So your illustration style, it's very detailed. It's very noodly. It's very work intensive. I don't know what the question is there. How does that inform how you write, maybe, or how does that change your perspective on?
It changes my schedule.
Yeah.
Where it becomes really hard to say yes to doing a drawing gig.
Yeah.
Especially in comics where you'll get paid maybe at some publishers as low as $50 a page, and to other publishers $150. And if you do a cover, maybe $300, $500, $600.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter if you draw really detailed, no matter what publisher you're at. They're all like I do these Star Wars where it's the Wookiee books now.
Yeah.
Because illustration pays so much better. It's just
Sure.
like Star Wars pays the bills,
Right.
and you're just like, but that's a job that acknowledges how long I'm actually working on
Sure.
like a page. So if you're doing these really detailed stuff, it's almost unfortunate that I feel a lot of times it's like talking to publishers where I'm just like, I can't give you any of my work.
Right.
I want to work for you. I would love to work on this, but it makes no sense for me to give you the job you're asking me to do at the page rate. It's like I can give you 10% of that detail.
Right. Yeah. So what's next? What's next for the imprint? What's next for you guys creatively?
I think what's next, and to answer completely honest, I think we are trying to move into TV and film.
Okay.
And that's no disrespect to comics. Every time we say that, people get a little like annoyed, like you're using, but it's not true. It's just another way to get your narratives out there, your fiction, and it's to use a different medium to get there.
What
Go.
what I'm most excited about is like on Instagram how you have the stories. I was thinking, I'm looking at it, I'm almost like Instagram stories is sequential storytelling. So if you go on there, you go in your friends, and you're seeing a day of their life in panels.
Sure.
Just this has happened, this happened,
Right.
this happened. I was like, oh my god, I can make a comic like that. So my next comic, Motro, is gonna be this choose your own adventure comic because Instagram has a yes/no poll option. So it's like, huh. And they're all gonna be these, 16:9 ratio panels. It fits 20 to a page.
Yeah.
So 20 panels a page that can instantly be translated to Instagram stories so you can read them.
Yeah. That sounds interesting.
Right?
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. And how about the imprint? Do you have more things coming out? Schedule?
Well, hopefully more
comics-wise?
Cloudia and Rex.
Yeah. Okay.
That's that's kind of like our what do you call like
Tentpole.
your tentpole thing, and then ideally make it a standalone publisher. That is like the big challenge to accomplish.
Sure.
In 2018.
Sure. Yeah. That's great. That's great. You guys want to see more Cloudia and Rex? Yeah. Much better. Good, yeah, because I do too. I thought this was fantastic work, and yeah, I want to thank you guys for doing this comic. I really do. I thought it was fun and engaging, and yeah, it was great stuff. So do more of this, please. Do we have any last questions? Yes, we do. Yay!
After they got in the car crash, what made you guys want to make the colors all pink and stuff?
That's all Daniel.
Okay.
Daniel will send me color stories. Instead of like asking me like, oh, what does this work? He will send me like a palette of like how the book is gonna change. So when a new event happens, a new scene changes, the color itself changes. And I thought that was a really smart idea.
Yeah.
He's coloring, or I guess our most immediate book coming out of Bunyo's Guardian Force Design Manual, and he colored the cover for it, and it just looks like he does a lot of beautiful work with light. And I just think he makes everything look illuminated.
Yeah. Have you when you see a color had a thought about how it made you feel? No? Okay. All right. Maybe as you get older. Maybe. Yeah.
Feeling.
Yeah, no, I mean, because I know that sometimes if something is a bright color versus a dark that'll change the way I read it and the way it scans to me. Yeah. Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? All right, very good. So Cloudia and Rex was our book this month. Next month's book, for all of you guys who are here, will be Mech Cadet U. We actually have this book here now, so you lucky people who are here can pick up your copy of Mech Cadet U. Everyone else doesn't get it for 2 more weeks, so you're super lucky. And we have the author Greg Pak will be here on February 11th. So mark down that on your calendars, parents, so you don't forget. And then in March, the book will be, I don't have a copy of it yet, but the book will be My Summer Vacation with the Hawaiian Fire Goddess, which is really cool. And that will have maybe the entire creative team here on March 18th. So February 11th, March 18th are the next 2 Kids Club meetings. I hope to see you all there. I want to thank you all for coming out. I want to thank Eric and Ulises for coming out and for doing Cloudia and Rex, a fantastic book. Thank you very much, everybody. This has been the Graphic Novel Club for the month.